Polina, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for work right now?
For work right now, I do data science and product analytics, and I work at Sensi. Are you familiar?
Yeah, do you get like a lot of yummy smelling candles and
We don't call them candles. It's
oh, whoops, wax? Am I allowed to call them
it's a
wax?
It's a Sensi bar, and the whole idea is that it's not a candle, so it's safe in that regard. There is no open fire, and you warm the wax in the warmer. And basically, very interesting idea. But we do have a lot of different products that I work with. So we have kids plush, so a lot of toys that smell. So our big thing is it's a fragrance company. So everything we sell is a smelling fragrance product. So anything from laundry products to cleaning supplies to kids like different type of toys. But yeah, mostly it's the wax, a lot of it. And the company started. I should know this. Let's say 20 years ago. And it's a privately owned company, and the couple started it in the garage, and then it moved into like a shipping container, and now it's a $1 billion revenue company a year. From all
And
over
they
the
have
world.
like Sensi Commons in Boise,
yes.
Idaho, which is like this giant building. Do you have like a desk and everything there, or are you remote?
I do not only have a desk, I actually have 2 desks.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I work cross departments. So I work with finance and the product development team. So like number people and the very, very far away from numbers people. And they still have to do strategy and things like that. But so I'm kind of in between of those 2 teams, moving around. I do have a favorite desk because one doesn't have a views to the mountains and the other one does.
Ooh.
But I am hybrid. So my favorite desk is at my home. I definitely prefer working from home. So that's in very, very briefly, that's what I do. But I graduated with a data science degree, just plain data science, mathematics 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And this is my first job out of grad school. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
I was kind of wondering, and I've had this conversation like earlier this week. How do I phrase this? Like all the smells have a different smell profile. How do you like analytically show like the smell profiles, or do you just go by like this is lavender, if you will,
Yep.
or by their names like that way?
By the names. We tried or still trying to build some kind of model taking in consideration what oils go into the smell, but so far it hasn't been working very well. But there is a big deal in fragrance world where AI is starting to build fragrances, and fragrance houses don't like that idea much because it's the people who've been trained all their life, and like the nose is their biggest asset, and all of a sudden you have this AI that's like, okay, let's put this molecule in this molecule. It smells good. Have you heard about AI coming up with food recipe?
No, I have
like-
not heard of AI coming up with like food recipes. I've heard people like talk to ChatGPT asking it for recipes, but I feel like that's really an underutilized. Like, why would you do that? Just Google the recipe.
Well, you would ask something like, give me your unique pizza flavor with like, you brought up lavender. It doesn't sound good, but let's say lavender pizza, and then AI would be like, go through recipes and say, well, this goes good with lavender. Let's try this pizza. And the human wouldn't think about it sometimes.
I feel like a lot of very highly paid chefs who come up with like unique menus, they can be undercut very easily with that as a tool. I guess ChatGPT is undercutting a lot of individuals.
We'll see. I just started playing with it recently. I did yesterday, actually. My friend and I, we made a cake. And we made it last week, but it's a heart-shaped cake, so we ate it like this weekend for Super Bowl. And I was posting a reel, and I wanted to come up with some thoughts about cake and love, because it was for Valentine's Day. Like, well, this and that, and I actually Googled stuff. And I'm like, oh, ChatGPT? And so I did, hey, and you know how you can modify what you're asking? And then I finally asked it, come up with a philosophical paragraph about love and cake. And
I
it
think
did.
I actually read that on or not LinkedIn, on Instagram.
Did you read
from
that
you.
text?
Yeah, I was like sitting there. I was like,
And then people like coming back and like, oh, I love this. I was like, thank you. But it was, I don't know. What are your thoughts about it? Like, are you excited? Are you scared? Are you concerned?
It's a tool. I post stuff on LinkedIn, and I literally like wrote something up the way I would write it, and then I gave it to Chat GPT, and then I was like, turn this into a LinkedIn post for me. So then it like changed the word, added way more emojis and exclamation points than I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
Changed the formatting, like broke up the paragraphs very clearly, so it's not like an overwhelming wall of text. And I went through it. I deleted some stuff because I'm like, this is a lot. And then I posted it. So, I mean, I'm cheating too, and I definitely used it for, like, I needed to convert Python to PySpark.
Okay.
So I was like, here's my Python code. Can you... And I, like, did some of the conversion, and I gave it to it. The thing I kept running into, though, is it's, like, limited to 4,000 characters.
Okay.
And you have to, like, tell it to, like, break the code up into different parts, and then tell it to go to different parts and print it.
Did it work?
It did.
I kind of want to try it.
But if you try to force it to like more than, I can't remember if it's 4,000 characters or 4,000 words, but if you ask for more than that amount, like it just stops like abruptly mid-sentence, and you're like, and you can also tell it, please continue, but sometimes it doesn't pick up where it left off.
Okay.
And then the funny thing about the code conversion was every time I submitted it and I asked it to like redo it, it came up with different code, like completely different format, like because you can break things up into different functions when you're so like it came up with one way of breaking stuff up and another way, and I was just like, I didn't know you could write that like this stuff many different ways.
I haven't played with it
so
yet.
it's really good at code conversion, or you can like give it your code and be like, can you optimize this, or can you add comments to my code for me?
Can it go from R to Python and the other way
It did
around?
not like that when I asked it to go from R to Python. It's like there isn't like a one-to-one match between these libraries in R for Python.
Okay.
So it didn't like being asked to do that.
That would be cool.
So, I mean, there are packages in Python where you can literally just say like, hey, I'm going to write in R now, and it lets you drop that in.
Into Python. Do you use Python mostly for work or different?
I made the conversion like 5 years ago. I still am salty about it.
Okay.
But everyone programs in Python. I still program like a data scientist, though, or like a statistician or mathematician.
Because you're coming from world of statistics, right? So that's mostly R.
Yeah.
Have you ever used SAS?
Yes, I used SAS. That was the first thing I learned was SAS, and then R into Python. But if you talk to like a computer science major and maybe you write the code that way too, the way that they write is dramatically different than the way I write code. And I mean, yes, like class statements and like functions and definitions, but like just the way that like my brain works and the way I want to write code is coming from like SAS to R to
Python.
And it's different. And the way that people in CS write is just like, I'm like, are you okay? Do you need a hug? I'm sorry. But like to them, they feel that way about my code. So I've been told many times it looks really weird, or that's a very unique way of doing it.
Yeah, I like unique better than weird.
But I mean,
it gets
it's
the
just
job
like
done.
I came from a different angle, and so do you know what type of code you write? Are you like a CS or mostly like?
I use Python just because for me it's user friendly. When I did, so this is my only job. Well, I did a little bit of coding in my previous job before grad school, but it really just my grad school, and then now is the most coding I've done. And during the grad school, we had my very first class was in SAS. Like, is this how it's going to be? But no. And then
they made you learn SAS for data science?
The very first class, so the professor who was teaching the class, she was comfortable with SAS, so we did SAS.
You can use SAS in data science? Like, it can handle big data? Because that was a problem.
We did a small chunk, so there was mostly like just for statistics and like outliers and things. It was like in the very beginning of data science. And then half of our professors preferred R and half Python. So I kind of went through both of those languages.
Have you ever had stata? Is that a thing that people do anymore?
I don't know. I'm sure they do.
It's
just
mostly like psych, because I used to work with psychologists.
Okay.
That sounds bad. So the psychology of someone in a nuclear control room. And so there were all these psychologists analyzing like the effect of like having all these alarms and control panels around you
on the person.
And how, so I was working with a lot of psychologists and analyzing, and they always love stata.
And stata is a programming language.
So it's like programming in R, but like all of the psychologists use stata.
That's interesting. I'm actually really interested in mental health and application of data science. Mm-hmm. Did you do data science within stata, or is it just...
So like, to me, cleaning? It's kind of like blurry, but like, I was previously a statistician, and every time I got asked to do anything in that lifetime, I was like, it was less than 100 observations or so. Like 200 was like amazing data amount. Whereas like in data science, if you hand me 200 observations, I'm like, are you okay? Do you know what you're doing? Why did you only hand me 200? Okay. So it's just like two different lives. But everything in Nuke is you suffer from the problem of not having enough data. And then the other extreme is having too much data. But the way that you treat that is kind of the same, because you try to stretch the small data to make it bigger. And then when you do statistical analysis on big data, you have to act like you have the population.
But
you select down, like, because in statistics, you calculate everything population versus sample. Mm-hmm. So then you select down to your sample out of your population. So you know the population mean, you know your sample mean, because you have all of the data. Mm-hmm. And so it's fun and cool and different. I have a problem that I was playing around with that's really intriguing. And I can't like go into details, but I can say it's like 50,000 variables, and only 200 observations.
Okay.
And how do you select down to the variables that are relevant for those 200 observations to separate them into different groups? It's over-parameterized to like the nth degree. Mm-hmm. And so the likelihood you're going to get false positives is through the roof.
Okay. So your goal was to split those 200 into...
There's a classification problem, and it's to split them into two different groups.
Oh, so your outcome would be split into groups based on a lot more variables.
So you have like 50,000 variables, and so using those 50,000 variables, can you categorize these 200 individuals? And you have to do like a test train split. So that means already starting out, you have to go down to like 150 people, because you have to hold out like 25 for testing for accuracy.
Did you figure it out?
I mean, I have something that I presented, and I got grilled by a bunch of people.
What is it one model that's good for that?
Hi, I'm Sarah from Sarah in Tech, and I just want to give a shout out to, if you want to learn more about Sarah in Tech, follow me on LinkedIn. Just look for Sarah Herberger, that's Herberger, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, we have Sarah in Tech as the handle. If you're looking to hear the unedited version of all of these interviews, they're available on Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. Just search for Sarah in Tech.